Welcome, everyone. We are celebrating, Jen and I, because we have just completed season 3, 37 episodes on Modern Sages. Woo! We went through all of these episodes and we're so proud of what we have created, what we have shared with you. We hope that you feel our love.
Yes.
So welcome to our season 3 recap.
Yes, we feel so honored and so grateful. And, it's been fun. We've learned a lot. There are some times where we had to refilm them or audio wasn't that great, or sometimes the messages weren't fully aligned. And so we had to re-record, but I feel like it's been a really great journey. And I just feel so grateful for you, Candace, and the wise wisdom that you share in this, partnership that we have going on. I love it.
Same with you, soul sister. Same with you. I feel like we've been soul sisters journey through many times and lifetimes, and we come together and we help each other remember, and we help those who come into our contact remember who they are. And it's such a joy to be a healer. It's such a joy to be a medicine woman and to have the format where we get to share this information from our hearts and we don't have to be in fear. It's, we can, with public speech, and we can be who we are and we can share these beautiful messages. It's really such an honor to live at this time.
Absolutely.
Welcome to Modern Sages Podcast.
I'm Jenn Gilbreth.
And I'm Candace Coons.
With over 25 years combined, we have delivered messages from beyond,
explored ancient healing wisdom, and integrated these profound teachings into our everyday life.
We are passionate about creating new ways of being human in the modern age by integrating the wisdom of the past with the present and coming into remembrance of who we truly are.
Are you ready to change your relationship to life itself? If the answer is yes, your journey begins now.
So before we get started, we're going to talk about juniper today. And of course, this is a cedar tree, correct? It's part of the cedar family.
Mm-hmm.
And usually this is the pine tree or the cedar tree that you see that has the little blue berries that are on there. And there's different parts of the tree that you can use for different medicinal things. So let's get started, Jen. What are some of the things that juniper can do for us?
Well, the first thing I want to talk about is I was reading today. So I have this great book. It's called Sacred Smoke. It's The Ancient Art of Smudging for Modern Times by Harvest McCampbell. We can, take a picture, link that below. But I found this at this Native American shaman store that I go to in Salt Lake when I was visiting. And I came across this today and I was like, Candace, you have to listen to how beautiful that this is.
It's so beautiful.
So I'm going to just start here. When we burn juniper smudge, we come in contact with a special energy in the universe and in ourselves. We face the elements a little more bravely. She teaches us to dance with the elements while holding our center, our connection to earth. She teaches us to strive. She teaches us to stand before spirit with a bare heart, hiding nothing. It is the bare heart, it is in this bare heart, this bravery, in the face of fear, is willingness to survive, to be part of a dance of life, no matter what the odds, that spirit draws near. I just think that's so beautiful. Like all of it is just so magical. And when I heard this, I was just like, it just lit me up inside. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so powerful. Because of course, for me, sandalwood is something that I always will rub on my third eye when I want to connect into the galactic. And I just feel like juniper, like the juniper berries that I'm going to start, crushing up and creating that same powder. I'm so excited to have that as like my dedication to connecting into universal truths as well as the galactic even more. Like to me, it just brings this sense of magic and really almost like activating your heart center, where I just imagine like placing it on my third eye during meditation and just like smelling that, but almost like that taking me deep into the soul of my heart. And I know you recently have been talking a lot about the fire of your heart and like bringing things back into the fire of your heart. And
Yes.
to me, it just feels like that's going to be such a catalyst or such a tool to also like have that is, okay, this is what I'm going to use to really dedicate into connecting into my heart center, into that deep wisdom of the universe. And so I don't know, I just loved that. I thought it was so powerful.
Yes. And juniper is a heart opening
Yes.
plant to use. And it's a slow growing tree. So whenever we harvest from juniper, we need to be
Yeah.
very wise about how we approach that. I mean, if you can use the berries the most, that's what you should use. And you can
Yeah.
use that to make, like you said, you can dry it and make your own powders. You can use that with oils. You can, and put in the teas. The teas are actually better. The berries are better if they're fresh or raw for the tea. Ideally, you can still dry it and use it for a tea, but ideally for the tea, it's better to get it fresh and then use it as a tea. But the dried is really good for making your own salves and tinctures and all of the other things that you can make with it.
Yeah.
And Native Americans have used this for centuries. They would make, traditionally, Native Americans would make ghost beads for their babies or for their children. What they would do is they dry the berries for 3 days and then they would string them together and then they would hang them above the areas where their children slept to keep away the evil spirits.
Yeah.
Or put them around their necks. Yeah. So
it's like the first malas.
Yeah, exactly. That's so true. Oh my gosh. But juniper is a fantastic smudge. And so if you do end up clipping some of the branch, it's good to ask permission. And a lot of people, because we're so desensitized and we're so disconnected to the natural world, we don't approach the natural world in a way of respect like the Native Americans did, and how they knew that all things had consciousness, that there was plant spirit and wisdom from the plants that we used, and they connected in with the wisdom and they honored and respected the wisdom of our plants and our trees and the natural world. And so if you do that, just be very respectful. Only cut a little bit. It takes a long time for these are slow growing trees. So you don't want to do anything to damage the tree when you wisecraft or when you harvest from it. So just be respectful, be reverent, give thanks, maybe give an offering to the tree after you take from it. And give thanks to Pachamama as well. But besides that, and besides killing germs and bacteria, which is what juniper also does when you use it as a smudge, it kills bacteria,
it's
just
good
like
for
sage
colds.
does.
Yeah.
And
it's good. The tea is good for colds as well. So like if you're starting to feel sick, you can always use that, kind of kick that as well. But going back to the Native American traditions, they also would use this in their sweat lodges. So they would place that, and that'd be part of the smoke that they would also use or infuse in that space as well. So it's just so cool how it's all connected. And
and I thought of you,
magical herb.
It is. And I thought of you too, because one of the things that you mentioned in one of the previous episodes was that you needed a tonic to support the kidneys. Juniper is a tonic to support the kidneys. So if anyone struggles with UTIs or kidney issues, juniper is fantastic for that. It strengthens your hair. You can make a wash out of it.
It's so nice.
Purifies the blood. It's great for digestion.
Oh yeah, it is a diuretic for sure.
Yes, it is a diuretic. So be aware of that.
Yes.
It's a great pain relief if you make it into a salve, which is so easy to do. It sounds difficult, but it's so easy to do. But if you use it as a salve, it helps with muscle aches and arthritis, joint issues, joint pain. So if you paired that, of course, with others like CBD, lavender, frankincense, things that would help with joint pain, arthritis, muscle pain, that helps with any kind of body aches or anything like that. So it's just a fantastic all around plant to use.
And you can get it in oil as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that's also something to think about, is that's, you normally get a smaller bottle with that, but you can also use an oil. So
Mm-hmm.
there's so many
Yeah.
different benefits. It's just so cool. It's
Dear
oh, go ahead.
37 of these that we've talked about,
I
Jen. Can you
know.
believe it?
I
We've
know.
talked
It's so
about
good.
37 different herbs, trees, oils, essential oils, teas, even charcoal. We
Yeah.
talked about charcoal, which isn't technically an herb, but at the same time, all the medicinals, like 37 different medicinals, natural medicinals that you
How
can
amazing.
use.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And those are like the ones that we are like, okay, these are the ones that we need to talk about and know first and foremost. And so
Mm-hmm.
I just find it so fun. And I just keep thinking back to also when you're saying, you need to ask for permission for the plants. And I recently started just picking up, like, I work 2 days at this really cute herb shop where I'm living on the main street. And it just have like opened up this whole new space for me for herbs. And I know we've been talking about herbs, but like it just has taken on like a whole different level.
Oh, it's like immersion.
Yeah.
Immersion studies.
And I am so loving every second of it. And even when I'm not there, I'm like listening to podcasts about all this stuff. So it's just like opened up a whole new passion in myself that I wanted to get started with, but I just didn't give myself the time to do it. And so it's been really fun, but I just keep thinking back. This is also um last week, or about a year ago, I also ended up with my shamanic trainings with you as well when we were
Mhm.
in Torrey. And I just have been reflecting on that too. And when you're talking about having permission for the land, is when we came back. So we went to this really amazing sacred portal, and there's hieroglyphics. Like, it's just so beautiful. But we've been there a couple of
Mhm.
times now together. And the first time we did kind of like a land healing and a fire ceremony there. And you could feel kind of the different vibration that it brought. And it's almost like that really we do have these nature spirits, these nature connections, and the elementals and the plants do have spirit, and everything around us has a spirit as well. We're not alone. And so it's good to remember that. But I'm even
Mhm.
just thinking about when we went with Dana after we did our episode about healthy emotions. Me, you, and Dana went out there, and I was filming in the drone, and I could feel when they were like, okay, it's time to stop. Like, no more, we're done. And even last week or a couple weeks ago when we were in Utah, we ended up doing a beautiful cacao ceremony. But then we also
Mhm.
went to Donut Falls and did a little ritual where we just gave Aini. So we just gave
A beauty offering,
a beauty offering.
Pachamama.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But we had the camera set up at first while we were setting it all up. And then I just turned it off. And it was like, once I turned that off, it was like all of a sudden we had a lot of things that we were experiencing, seeing, and channeling. And so it's just so amazing to see how when we really connect in with the land and we respect what the land wants and the spirits who are connected there and the plant wisdom and the plant medicine. And it's just so powerful when we can let go of like our expectations of what we want it to look like and just really surrender and trust, because we are a spirit. Of course, I always say this: before we came here, we're a spirit. After we leave, we're going to be a spirit, right?
Yes.
But it's so much more, is that we are constantly surrounded by elementals, by Mother Earth, by other people. So it just has been like opened this whole new facet of life for me. And just reflecting on, it's been a
The
year
beauty
since our
way.
training, all of it has just been like little by little. And I think that's what I've loved about this past season, is that we have addressed some critical viewpoints. One of my favorites was the podcast all about who you truly are, and just bringing back into the remembrance of, you're so much more than this. Yes, you're experiencing
Mhm.
this, but it doesn't define you. I just felt so strong about that episode, and it's still one of my absolute favorites.
Me too. That's an episode I could listen to again and
Me
again.
too. Me too.
I feel like I need that reminder
Yeah, it
from
was
time to time
it
too.
was
Like,
funny because when I was editing it or creating reels with it, it was like when I was listening to it, I was like, oh, I need this message right now. And it was like me
mm-hmm.
listening to my own self or you remind me of this concept. It was really
Yep.
funny.
It was really neat.
Yeah.
That's one of the beautiful things I think about channeling. And I really do feel that when you show up for spirit and you allow spirit to come through and share the messages that need to be heard, it is assisting you as well as it's assisting all those who come into
Absolutely.
contact with that information. So even for myself, if I go back and listen to, I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. Yes, I need to get back on track. I need to recenter. I need to come back to that understanding. So because the world of Maya, the way that has been created, it's been created to give you this experience of duality and to put you into the sleep of Maya, to give you this experience of duality. And so we don't need to beat ourselves up if we come into these moments of remembrance and enlightenment and then we go back into the sleep, and then we need to give ourselves a break in this human journey. And one of the things that keep coming through from spirit as well is that coming to this planet, as beautiful as Pachamama is, and we are so blessed. And I think that we don't even recognize sometimes how beautiful she is compared to, I believe, other places, other dimensions and planets that exist. The diversity that Pachamama has there is no other like Pachamama.
Right.
It is also one of the most challenging experiences that your soul can experience. So when a soul decides to incarnate as a human on Pachamama,
It's like stuff's going to get
yeah,
real.
stuff's going to get real, man. First of all, no one gets out alive. So you're going to have quite an experience. But spirit knows that, our spirit guides and those on the other side. And that is what I hear again and again, is how loving and respectful they are to us for coming here and being willing to have this experience, and how much compassion is held for us on the other side. And so that's another thing that I've, have loved about the beauty way, because the shamanic path is also called the beauty way. And what you're talking about too, it's like once you start living a life like this, because it's not just a philosophy, it is a practice, it's a way of life, it is a healing path, and there's all these healing tools. It's not a religion, but it is a healing path. It is a way of life. It's a way of integrating different tools to help you establish harmony and right relationship and balance in your life. But coming from this perspective and being able to awaken to the endless possibilities of connection to the natural world and to the dimensions and to Pachamama, to each other, it changes, it shifts your whole perspective of this life. It makes it so beautiful.
It really does.
And that's what I love about it most, because I thought, gosh, to be able to see it this way.
And
it doesn't change like core beliefs. It just adds, it just feels like it deepens, it adds it. The intimacy of it is so intense and alive and vibrant and challenging. And it has the whole thing that comes with it.
Right.
But because of the beautiful tools that we've been given, we have again and again, we can come back. We can come back and say, okay, if I'm feeling off, if I'm feeling uncentered, if I'm feeling lost, I'm going to go back to my medicine bag. What can I pull out of my medicine bag to help me reestablish balance physically, emotionally, mentally, or spiritually? And I go back to that again and again and again, and it brings me back to my center.
That's a good reminder.
Yeah. So there's been so many things we talked about. I mean, another thing that I loved talking about in season 3, I've got a list over here next to my desk, was bridging the gap between
Yes.
religion and spirituality. And we did 2 episodes of this because, and the reason we did this is because there's so many misconceptions about shamanism. Again, that is it a religion, or if you're Christian, you can't be a shaman, or you can't be a medicine woman. So we've addressed this again and again and again, that it is
Yes, we
not a
have.
religion. You can do both. It's not taking away. In fact, it can help you deepen your connection or heal religious trauma that you may have experienced, not from the faith itself, but by the people in the faith.
Yeah.
And help you come back to core teachings that bring you back to remembrance. So what were some of the thoughts that you had when we were talking about this? Because you've had quite a journey with this too,
Yeah.
on a personal level.
Oh yeah. I felt like communicating this and like sharing honestly, to me, it's just like, I just have felt and found so much understanding and peace with my own journey when it comes to religion. And I just feel like being able to express that and to share that is so vulnerable, but yet so powerful. And so many people who are moving forward into this space of remembering are also letting go of maybe patterns or programs that aren't serving them. And that doesn't mean they have to walk away from the faith that they were raised in. But if it's not serving it, saying, okay, which pieces do serve you, which pieces feel right, and which don't? And how can you come to balance with yourself for your own personal answers? And we talked a lot about that on our podcast, of those 2 ones, and explaining what we've experienced and how we've been able to find healing and come to know who God is in our own specific way. And I just think that since the Aquarian Age, since 2020, so many people have felt lost or alone, or they haven't known how to navigate spiritually. But it's such a gift that we've been given. And so I just felt so honored to talk about it. It was very vulnerable, but yet I just feel like it was definitely needful. And as we were reflecting earlier, this almost was like the witch wound
In
episode in season 1, where it was like, we're both like, can we do this? What are people going to think? And then it was almost like it was healing for us as well. Yeah.
So much so. And this is the thing, it's like, when things have been out of balance, it pendulums to the other extreme for a while, and eventually we'll be able to come back into the middle, with these topics. And that's what I'm hoping, is that people can see the blessings of religion in your life, how it creates a roadmap for this human experience. And, when there's certain messages, when people are coming from a fear space and they look at those messages, they're going to take something away from that in a different way than someone who's coming from a love-centered place and reads that same message in our sacred texts, like the Bible or the Bhagavad Gita or the Tao Te Ching or whatever you're reading. But when you're coming from a different lens, there's different energies and messages and things that you're going to pick up. And I'm saying, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Like really come back to your center and really connect in with the eagle's perspective and the heart's perspective with it, and say, what is the overall message? When they were sharing this story, when they were sharing this message, where was this coming from according to that time in history? Even though we were going through different things in different times of history, we're all human and we all had the same basic human needs. And at the end of the day, those sacred texts are really there to remind you that we live in the energy of cause and effect. What you put out,
you get
comes back to you. Another one is that you are divine. That is another one. You are divine. And so I think the other thing too is, instead of arguing over faiths, it's so important that, and because as a shaman, our roles, or a medicine woman, our roles are to unite, to unify, to bring people together in that common ground. We focus on what we have in common, not how we are different. And that's how we bring peace to our communities, our tribes, our families. That is the role of a medicine woman, is to bring right relationship to your body, to your mind, to your spirit, to your community, and to the planet.
Yeah.
So that is
awesome.
our role. And so we hope that that is what came forth. It wasn't to say you need to do this or that, or you should. It was like, how can we find peace and move forward and move this on to the next level?
Yeah. It's like pulling back to the ego's perspective again and saying, like, even if you have been wounded, or if maybe you're trying to figure out your own faith and you're going and you're experiencing or exploring something different, and instead of making those who are very dedicated to their faith wrong or judging them for judging you, you're no different if you're judging in that same space, right? But even just saying, okay, I can see where they're coming from. I can see why they're experiencing that. And instead of being like, oh, this is bad and wrong, like, you get to choose how you want to interact with that. Like, you get to choose how you want to respond, if you want to respond, or you can take a step back and say, what's the main lesson here? What am I to be learning? And move forward with that space instead of making everyone else bad or wrong, or vice versa, you making someone else bad and wrong if they don't believe the same thing that you do. We're all here in this human journey navigating, and everyone came with their unique experience. They came with their unique soul's contracts, and the lessons they came here to learn are so different. And so who are we to say this person needs to have this lesson and this lesson? Like, that's just not what it's about. And another episode we talked about, go ahead.
I was going to say, even when we think about division, we're coming from a very cognitive space, right? We're not coming from a heart space.
Yeah.
When you live a heart-centered life, which is what we're being invited to do in the Aquarian, we're being invited to open, to activate the heart, to settle into that soulful, the seat of the soul, that Christ consciousness inside of us, that heart space energy. When you're coming from the space of brotherhood and sisterhood and connection and intimacy, it's not, you don't get so wrapped around the axle around language.
Yeah.
It's like, how often throughout history have we fought over language when really we were talking about very much the same thing. So when we communicate, and when you lean back into that heart center life, into your heart space, and you communicate from this space, you're not just listening to the words. You're feeling into what they're saying. You're feeling into where they're coming from. You are empathizing with their perspective, with where their heart is, where the emotions, their history. You're using your gifts of spirit and everything else to communicate. You're opening yourself up into multiple levels of communication.
Absolutely.
And when you do that, you're able to truly understand where someone is coming from. And people want to feel seen and heard and felt and validated. At the end of the day, they want you to know that you get it. So it's like, if we can connect with people from this space, even if we don't necessarily agree 100%, or we see things from a different perspective, if we can communicate from this space, we'll be able to bring people together.
Absolutely.
And that is another beautiful thing about seeing things from this perspective, because it's a heart-centered way of experiencing life and communing with life.
Yeah. Which I completely agree. Yeah. Along with that, we also had two amazing guests this season as well. We had Brandon Van Stappen.
Yes. Transformational life coach.
Yes. And he talked about, coming to face death and the fear and how that pushed him forward to really embrace what life is and why we're here and how he wants to live life. And that was so powerful. It's so funny that this season, for how everything worked out, we had two men on the podcast with us this season. And I just feel like that was also very necessary.
I do. To represent that healthy masculine.
The masculine, yeah.
We need healthy masculine, the divine masculine and the divine feminine expressions. And it was so wonderful to have that energy and perspective come forth with someone who's so balanced and open.
Yeah.
And also too, like Sean and Brand, we had
Sean.
Sean Lurwill as well, who is a mindfulness practitioner. He helps guide people with mindfulness. He's an astrologer, tarot reader, psychic. He had
The whole shebang.
a near-death experience as well, had brain damage, and had to come through this recovery process where it changed his whole reality and perspective on life. And it was really, really cool to see these two individuals kind of go through this dark night of the soul.
Yeah.
And, you know, it reminds me of the journey of the lotus flower, how, you know, the seed of the lotus flower is in the mud underneath the muddy water. That's where its journey begins, and it rises up through the mud, up through the muddy water, up to the surface of the water, and it blooms in the rays of the sun. And as I was listening to both of their journeys, it was like they had to dive deep into, at different times in their lives, that dark night of the soul, and kind of recreate their lives in a way that was more aligned with their heart, hearing the call of spirit within them.
I find
and
that
following it.
I find that fascinating too, because also during the season, you and I both faced some pretty difficult experiences for ourselves. And we also were called into that space of, you know, really having to look within and dive into the dark night of the soul. Like, we both experienced some pretty heavy things in that space. And so,
Yes.
you know, that's what this whole thing is about. We're all going to experience those deep nights, those dark nights of the soul. And at the same time, when you have such beautiful paths and tools to lean on, it makes it a little bit more bearable. So you can pull yourself out of those situations and see a higher perspective. And I know for you, you ended up working with another shaman that you've worked with before, and he led you to do a beautiful journey that reclaimed parts of you who were gone for so many years, so many lifetimes. And so there's so much beauty in that. It's just, sometimes it's hard for us to remember that aspect. Oh my gosh, there is a huge spider. You're not going to believe this. There's this spider web. It's weaving outside my window, like on the patio, but it's like this big. It's huge. But how funny when we're talking about, you know, weaving through all these things, that I'm just like looking
and
up
grandmother spider wisdom,
zone.
right? Grandmother spider, which is a Native American belief of
and now
basically
she's
the
gone.
Divine Mother.
Now I don't see her.
And how she weaved creation into reality through her mind. And so it's so amazing. Like, even that, just like, what are we thinking about when we have these conversations? It's just so cool.
And then that's also so connected into juniper. To me, I'm like, oh, that's so connected into the spiritual wisdom that juniper brings also. It's just it's so phenomenal.
And we had that great episode, speaking of juniper again, we had that great episode of the healing power of plant medicine.
Yeah. Oh, 2. We separated that into 2. And my goodness, some of my favorite ones.
Yes. There's another misconception out there that if you're a shaman, that you facilitate ayahuasca journeys or peyote or other things. And I feel like we addressed that issue too as well. That does not necessarily mean that. Some do. And that's what I prefer to be calling a medicine woman over being called a shaman. But when you're in this path, there's going to be certain areas where you focus your energies more into. You're trained in the other areas, but you're going to focus in on certain areas that really call to your heart. And we always share plant medicine wisdom with the herbs that you can use on our show. You don't have to do ayahuasca, but ayahuasca and these other things are an option if that plant spirit is calling you for some reason.
Yeah.
But then again, you don't have to use that to go into altered states of consciousness. But there is consciousness in all things. And if we can be open to listening to that again and deepening our connection, then in turn, what my hope and my prayer anyway is that we will treat our planet better, because, what we're seeing with global warming, what we're seeing with the environmental changes that are happening, that is a result of this disconnection. It has to shift. And so, and the other thing too, in the second season, we talked about our galactic families. I believe that before we're ready to really connect with the galactic beings, we have to level up our consciousness. We have to learn how to get along. We have to learn how to come from a heart space. We have to understand that we're all one. We have to get used to the diversity here before we can open up to the diversity of the universe. There's so much life out there, but if we don't raise our consciousness, then they can't intervene and they can't connect with us. And I believe that when that does happen, not only will we be moving into what it would be perceived as a golden age, but that's just the beginning too. What that will open up is a whole other level of expansion, technology, growth, spirituality, and everything of the above. So at least that's the feeling I've been picking up with when we've channeled with the galactic beings, that it's like, this is all part of the process. Their relationship with the natural world, the natural world's relationship with humanity, how this is all coming together is all in service to our awakening, one way or another. So I hope that everybody will go back and listen to our episodes. We covered everything from talismans to blessing ways to our own spiritual personal routines to give ideas about ways to integrate a spiritual routine in your life. We talked about ancestral healing work.
This has been a jam-packed season.
It's been a jam-packed season full of information and tools. Absolutely. It really is. It's been super meaty. So I hope that everybody enjoyed it, and go back and listen to all of our seasons if you haven't yet.
Yeah, there's great nuggets in all of that. So we would love to have you join us. Of course, we have our YouTube channel, we have our TikTok, we have Instagram, we got Facebook, so there's so many different tips and tools and just ways to connect. And so we just want to bring that remembrance to you. And we're just so, so grateful for your support. And I'm just so grateful for you, Candace. I'm so grateful for you being my medicine woman, and always remembering and reminding me who I truly am. And, healers need other healers.
Yes, healers need healers.
Sisters.
Yes, we need our tribe.
Yeah, absolutely.
Many blessings. Same with you, Jen. So grateful.
You. Yeah,
so grateful. We love you all.
Love you.
Thank you for watching Modern Sages. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
We are so grateful for your support. If you want to follow us, we have an Instagram account as well as on Facebook. We have our podcast, which is the Modern Sages podcast as well.
And we are so excited to launch our Gifts of Spirit classes in our Modern Sages Mystery School.
Absolutely. Oh, we're so excited. So we're going to link the information below in the show notes for more information about our mystery school.